running a business or starting a business or something like this was actually a criminal offense in the Soviet Union. And it was sort of an accepted truth. Okay, you don't do this because this is a crime. You don't make money kind of in your own business because this is a crime. And then business was more like a swear word, right? It was a B word. You could not trade in foreign currency. And the penalty for trading foreign currency in the Soviet Union was death. I was until that time, I was operating under the mental model that if you don't do anything wrong, then, you're not getting into trouble. And here I was. I didn't do anything wrong, but I was getting into trouble. It took many years to really recover from that. And I went into depression and I didn't want to admit it to myself.
What does it take to actually rebuild yourself? Not your company, not your career, but yourself. After the state has gone against you, after depression has swallowed years of your life, and after war has destroyed everything you have built. Our today's guest is Alexei Beltyukov. He grew up in Soviet Union, trained as a medical doctor, stumbled into an INSEAD MBA, and then became a serial entrepreneur in Russia, building businesses worth millions of dollars. But that is not the story I want to talk about today. The one I want to talk about is the one where a man built his entire identity around integrity and was then accused publicly of corruption. He then left for the US, where he was in depression for a few years that he did not even recognize, and then slowly rebuilt himself. And now, with the technology that he has been working with since 2006, he has pivoted into the American renewables energy market. This is not a standard founder success story. This is something that I called as psychological elasticity, where we understand what breaks, what bends, and what somehow survives. I am Ashish, and this is the Founder's Stack. Hey Alexei, welcome to the Founder's Stack. I've been really excited to, do this with you since your journey is a unique, case study in what I call as psychological elasticity. Your journey as a founder, not just as a, McKinsey analyst or a CEO, what I see in you is a provincial medical doctor who learned triage in the 90s and later in 2022 again went back to the kitchen environment. I would really love to, know your journey today, and thanks again for joining me.
My pleasure, Shish, and hello. Glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So Alexei, why don't we start off right at the beginning? Where were you born, and how was your childhood like?
Well, I was born in the Soviet Union and in the middle of the country. The city is called, or was called, Sverdlovsk. They got it renamed since then.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's as for every child, wherever you grow, that's what you think is normal. And so it was exactly the same for me. It's
Awesome.
pretty
And
normal for the time and for the place.
how were you as a kid? Were you like a studious kid, or were you the mischievous kind, or how would you describe yourself?
It's really hard to be self-aware at that kind of age, and I was definitely not an exception.
Mhm.
So I was just an ordinary kid out there. I wasn't particularly. I don't think that I was really standing out in any particular way.
Okay, okay. And I think you got into medicine, right? How did that come about?
Um, it's that was one of the things that again that was completely normal for us at the time and at that place, but might be a little weird for many people who aren't from that time and that place. So In the Soviet Union, we basically had relatively limited options. Even though I was living in like probably the third or fourth largest city in the country, and that city had several universities, or as they were called back then, institutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that where you could go for college. But it was pretty unusual for people to travel to different cities for that in general, and for
Mm-hmm.
education too. And so I had the options that were open to me that would also be interesting were actually fairly limited. So I considered for some time to go study in Moscow, and in such case, I would be studying international relations. And so my mom took me to that university in Moscow, and it didn't particularly click. Also, to be honest, there's very little chance of me being accepted. I was not really interested in the fundamental sciences like physics or math or this sort of stuff, which Soviet Union actually had fairly decent sort of education in. But that was, it was just didn't excite me. And so engineering didn't excite me either. And so once all of these were eliminated, we basically just had medicine left. And for the longest time, I thought, man, I mean, this is really not good because I thought, okay, like my mother was a doctor, right? So I didn't have a lot of exposure to her actual work, but obviously, we discussed things at home. And so I always thought, man, I won't be able to work with patients because they are, they're smelly and they bleed and God knows what, and this is not for me. And then one day we had a medical emergency in our house, and I was living in a big apartment building, and so in a different apartment there was a medical emergency, and so the lady had something going on, and they had to call an ambulance. And so they asked me to help carry the stretcher, right? And so as I was called for this, and I helped do this, and obviously I didn't really do anything other than just hold a handle and carry whatever. But that was the experience. The only like look at it, it's maybe not as bad as I thought. It was like a 5 minute experience. But hey, I was like whatever, 17, 18 or something. So yeah, and I thought, okay, maybe medicine then.
Okay, so was that like a turning point wherein you actually started taking a little more interest in medicine, this incident?
Kind of, yes. I mean, it's so the way the college system worked in the Soviet Union is you had to sit for entrance exams. So it's not like in the US where everybody's taking this SAT and writes essays and so
Mm-hmm.
on. So it was a little different. So we had, regardless of what you did at school, you at high school, you were supposed to sit for exams that were different for every individual college, and they were all happening at the same time, and they were all in person and all that. And for med school, obviously, I had to take biology. And I should say my high school was actually completely outstanding on a very large number of counts, but not biology. We had god-awful biology teachers who had absolutely no clue what she was talking about. And so I had like maybe 3 months to learn all biology from scratch to stand a chance to pass the exam. And so that's what I did. So I went to an old school library with books, and took out a book. I don't even know who told me to take this particular book. It was a Russian translation of a French textbook. Uh, I have absolutely no clue how that happened. But so I ended up with this really thick biology book, and I read it, and that was that. Passed the exam.
Great, great. And once you got into, medicine, How many years did you practice before you again had to finally pivot?
It was another strange situation. So back in the day, so I got interested in immunology, right? And like in the US, in order to be a clinical immunologist, you would probably need to study for like 10 years. And that was
Mhm,
supervised practice and then unsupervised practice and all that. And in the 90s, in early 90s, in the post-Soviet countries, I was like, there was three people who could pronounce the word immunology in my town. I mean, obviously, I'm exaggerating, but three people who could have some kind of remote claim of actually being immunologists, and I was one of the three. So there were two other kind of adult immunologists, and there was me then. And so there was just too much work for somebody to kind of supervise me or anything. So I actually started working or like performing the duties of an actual, doctor when I was still at med school as a result. And so technically I left medicine soon after getting my diploma, but I worked for about 2.5 years.
mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah. And would you want to elaborate on, why the switch happened and how did, things happen with you?
um, we had it was really weird time. Even for the time and the place, it was some really weird things were happening. Uh, it's really hard to imagine how it is unless you've experienced this, because uh, you know,
This
for
was when the Soviet Union fell, correct? This is
yes, and
around,
that
yeah.
was this was sort of a really big turn of events.
Mhm,
So many things happened that we could never imagine could happen, and they had a really profound effect on everything. Like for example, running a business or starting a business or something like this was
mhm,
actually a criminal offense in the Soviet Union. And it was sort of an accepted truth. Okay, you
mhm,
don't do this because this is a crime. You don't make money kind of in your own business because this is a crime. And then business was more like a swear word, right? It was a B word, and also not a very popular one. So it's not like people were thinking, "Oh, I should start my own business." No, 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 you don't do this. It was similar to, if somebody were saying, "Oh, I'm gonna spend my life stealing things." So that's and all of a sudden that became a possibility. And because of that, and there were many, many more changes. Like for example, um, you could not trade in foreign currency. And the penalty for trading foreign currency in the Soviet Union was death. Right? It was
mhm.
not nothing mild, right? So if you were trading foreign currency, it was capital punishment. That was it. And all of a sudden, they became a possibility. Illegal, you could do it legally, and all that. And uh, there were all sorts of things. Like I recall vividly, we had these forensic medicine studies where they taught us, among other things, still during the Soviet times, how to examine a person to find out if they had homosexual, sexual intercourse. uh Seriously, they really, I mean, like, as a doctor, you were supposed, if the police called on you, you were supposed to perform the examination and then say, yes, this person, did that, or that person
Mhm.
didn't do that. And obviously, overnight it suddenly became not a crime anymore. It was like all sorts of weird things happened. And so we had this really enterprising, forward-looking administrator of a blood bank. Of all things, like, out of the blue, who would have thought, right? And then in the town, like two hours east of Moscow, it was closed to foreigners. The last foreigner it was all full of sort of military enterprises, and so the last foreigner we had was Fidel Castro in like 64 or something, right? We didn't have a single one afterwards before like 1989 or something. So we got this guy who was the administrator of a blood bank in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And he made this blood bank into an absolute shining star, to the point that it became the reference blood bank for Russia, as recognized by some sort of federation of blood banks from the Netherlands. Uh, and so he realized that he needed like young doctors to help him sort of implement his vision. And I was one of those people. I was not yet a doctor. I was a student, but he and I were good enough, let's go. And so he recruited me and a couple of other guys. And we did things that were really unimaginable for in many other places and in many other times and so on. So some of the things I did was research in immunology, and I had a completely free reign, what I was doing and how and so on. And I had access to the little equipment that we had. And it was amazing time. It was, I really did get to do things that otherwise would not have been possible. But unfortunately, the job didn't pay. I mean, for all
Oh,
his forward looking and all, I mean, as a doctor, I was well, obviously, as everyone at the time, I had a side hustle because I have to eat something. And one of my side hustles was selling things in the street, and my other side hustle was doing translations from English. And so that one paid more in an hour than I could make as a doctor over a month. Uh, and it became very clear that it's just not workable. I can't keep working as a doctor because I just couldn't feed myself or the family. And for some time, I kind of entertained the thought of maybe we can do it part-time, but very clearly, very quickly became clear that it's just medicine is not a profession you can do part-time. Right? You would be hurting your patients, you would be, not doing a good job, and so it didn't work. I mean, I didn't even try. I mean, like it was, I just looked at and how my classmates tried it, and it didn't work. So went into pharma, and then the rest is history.
so how did you go for the MBA? Like you told me things changed when the Soviet Union fell. So the reason you switched, was it because of some sort of like say financial adversity, or was it more of a like you were looking for newer and better opportunities and this came along, or what?
I mean, the MBA itself had absolutely nothing to do with financial adversity.
Mhm.
It had to do a lot with curiosity, really. When I applied, and even when I got accepted, and actually probably even as I started studying, I had absolutely no clue what I was up to. Um, Seriously, I mean, I didn't know what a business school was, what MBA meant. And like BCG for me, which for people in business, BCG is a consulting company. For me, a TB vaccine. Uh, so it was a completely different world. So, but I was just curious. Okay, interesting. We should try this out. So.
And was this the first time you even went outside of Soviet Union, or you had
No,
gone
no.
before?
The first time was, I think, 1989 and 1990. Yeah, so not the first time, but it was the first time in France.
Yeah. So you were staying long term for the first time in another country. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
And how was your experience? New cultures and all those sort of things.
I expected it to be different, and it was different. So, it's yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So after the MBA, what did you do?
Well, first of all, during MBA, I thought I'm going back to pharma. It sort of it
Mm-hmm.
made sense to me. I'm a doctor, and I worked in pharma for a couple of years. Seems interesting. I advanced professionally, and I thought I'm going back to a more interesting position. And if nothing works out, I'll go to McKinsey. That was the thinking, right? I had absolutely no clue what McKinsey was and why everyone wants to go to McKinsey. I also didn't know. And so it was all very strange ideas at the time. And so I interviewed with a bunch of pharma companies, and it turned out that none of them had really an understanding of why they needed me with an MBA. They had the weirdest ideas, and then basically the company where I worked before MBA, they gave me an offer to come back, and the offer included me becoming a sales representative. And I was like, why? I mean, before MBA, I actually educated sales representatives and sort of taught them how to do things. And now you want me to go back, like below the position where I was and doing things that I taught others how to do? Like, what's the logic in that?
Mm-hmm.
And they had some very convoluted logic that I still don't understand to this day. I think they just didn't know what to do with me, really. So it was very similar with every other pharma company. And so I said, okay, I mean, if everyone goes to McKinsey, that's going to be my fallback option. I'm going to interview with McKinsey too. And I went to interview with McKinsey, and I was amazed at how good the people were, and how sort of we thought about the same things, and it just clicked. And obviously, over the years, I learned that it was just my lack of understanding that I ever thought about McKinsey as a fallback option, and that was that.
And how was your experience with McKinsey? How long were you working there, and what was your work role like?
I was there for about sorry, 5.5 years. The experience was like the first maybe year was really very difficult, especially because one of my first projects was in pharma. And so I thought it was going to be easy. I mean, I've been there, I've done that, and it turned out that was really not good enough, because you had to sort of logically justify everything you were doing from scratch, from first principles. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to come and tell them what to do, and that's really not how it worked. So that was a tough one. But then I sort of like got into my stride, and at one point, I led the largest McKinsey project of that period. Usually, a McKinsey team is a manager plus 2 or plus 3 consultants, and I was a manager of a team of 11. So that was a really big one, and obviously financially as well. But soon after that project, I realized that I don't want to be a consultant anymore. The thought was that I thought, okay, so I keep doing this, and then what am I going to tell my grandkids when they ask me what I'm doing? And I thought it was just idiotic, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And then it took me more than a year, maybe even 2 years, to sort of get my act together and leave. McKinsey makes it really hard for you to leave. They take such good care of you that leaving is hard. And also, as I learned much later, uh, very, very few people leave McKinsey on their own, perhaps for that very reason. But I kind of like kicked myself out of there, and yeah, became an entrepreneur basically.
Great. So your McKinsey posting, was that in the US or anywhere else?
No, like I did spend a little time in the U.S., but my kind of home office was Moscow.
Okay.
I also did actually, one project in Norway, and another one was partially in the U.S.
Okay. Now you mentioned you then started your journey to be an entrepreneur. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Um, It was really a string of coincidences. After McKinsey, I wasn't looking to become an entrepreneur. I thought I'll just get a job in some real business. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out that the job that I found was starting a business for someone who had the money but didn't have the time or the energy to do it themselves. And so we did that. It was a rail car leasing business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had an outstanding team, and we built an excellent business. We kind of there were disagreements in the end with the owners on a number of things. Basically, I think they didn't think that we deserved to be paid as much as they promised us in the beginning. That was sort
Mm-hmm.
of the final reason. And so many people left, including myself. And but that was the first thing I did.
How long did you do this? And this was in which
It
year?
was it was not too long. It was probably less than 2 years.
Okay.
We just launched the business, signed the first contract with the customers,
Mm-hmm.
raised the first investment money, and that's when I left.
This was in which year?
It was 2004.
2004. Yeah. And then after that, what did you do after this initiative?
And then a friend of mine with whom we met at McKinsey, and he left before me.
Mm-hmm.
So he invited me to be his partner in something he was starting. So that something was basically a turnaround business, an operational turnaround business for a specific industrial conglomerate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were two equal partners, and it was a really particular arrangement. So it was kind of entrepreneur for hire sort of arrangement. So we were free to do what we needed to do as far as we were showing the results. But most of the compensation was in salary. So we
Mm-hmm.
weren't sort of really depending on ourselves. That conglomerate paid us a salary,
Mm-hmm.
and also we had kind of bonuses structured in relation to how well we did our jobs. And these bonuses were already kind of more like a classic fund manager structure. So, and then at one point, my partner left to pursue other, interests, and I stayed on, and then I basically spun this out. I took that business independent, and continued to serve the same customer, and also found others with the same sort of business model. So similar to how fund managers are working.
So, you mentioned that, your partner left midway because he found some other interests, How this, impacted you? Was this, expected along some lines, or was it kind of hard for you to continue?
It was a very turbulent time in general. That sort of this
Mm-hmm.
whole tenure was very intense. Uh, so against that backdrop, there was really nothing special. I mean, we had some disagreements, and then we started working again together
Mm-hmm.
later. So it was okay. I mean, he wanted to do something else. I was ready to take it on
Mm-hmm.
independently, and so it was more or less organic.
And how confident were you that you would be handle it all together when he left? Was it more of a gut feeling, or you were like pretty confident that yeah, you can handle this pretty easily?
Um, I don't think it was a thought that ever occurred to me. It was just okay. I mean, this is happening, so we'll do it this way now.
Yeah, okay, that's the only option basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there was in theory, there were many options,
Mm-hmm.
but in practice, it's like, okay, I mean, this is happening, so this is how we're doing it now.
Okay, okay. And how long was your partner with you? And then how long were you working alone after he left?
We worked together for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I worked alone for, man, it was a much longer time. Um, I sold that business in 2013, so that would be almost 10 years.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so maybe
So
like
10 years
eight,
on your own or
eh,
10 years
8 years on
including?
my own, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And do you want to talk about the Skolkovo Foundation incident?
Not that I want to, but I can.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get into specifics if you don't want to, but would love to know how that, kind of impacted you mentally and, how you managed to get out of it.
Well, it was a really very hard time. You see, actually, calling back on this turnaround company experience, one of the key things that made us successful in that business, my partner and I, is that we did not steal. Right? It's sort of
Mhm,
it might sound a little weird to bring this up, but it was because these were underperforming assets. Things were not going well, and at the same time, the our clients were willing to put some money in to kind of save the assets or whatever was necessary, right? So the opportunities for wrongdoing were all very much present. And what distinguished us from maybe some other operators is that we did not ever take kind of our opportunities of that sort. Right? We always were above board. We kind of never touched the money that did belong to us and so on. So basically, that was the foundation of our business model. It was not hard. Sorry, it was not easy. It was hard
mhm,
for people like our clients to find somebody they could trust with their money at that time and in that place. And so that was our sort of competitive moat, if you will, right? So we were not stealing, and that was kind of a known fact. It was tested in many situations, and so it was tested beyond any doubt, right? And that was, I think, a significant reason why I was invited to lead Skolko's operations, right? So I wasn't sort of the top political guy, but I was the top operation guy.
mhm.
And so that I think was a significant factor because the budget that we had was I think 1.3 billion dollars per year, and about 300 million of that was to be given out in grants, and so it was really important to have a person at that who would not be taking a cut of everything that passed their hands, right? And so that's how I was operating, and I saw my mission, or part of my mission rather, to keep it squeaky clean. So not only did I not take a cut myself, I also didn't let others do it. And so when the allegation was exactly that I sort of allowed some impropriety and participated in that, that was really hard, because that sort of not only was it counterfactual, there was no impropriety that ever happened, but also it really ruined the reputation that I built over the years, and it was impossible to fight back because when the state goes against you, it's as an individual you have very few options, right? So it was really very hard, both this and also psychologically, right? Because I was kind of until that time I was operating under the mental model that if you don't do anything wrong, then you're not getting into trouble. And here I was. I didn't do anything wrong, but I was getting into trouble. It took many years to really recover from that.
And was this also one of the reasons you sold off your business?
Yes, it was. It became clear at that time. I mean, we were sort of observing the tightening of the political climate and the implications for the business environment in Russia for some time. And we're sort of thinking, okay, maybe we can't really change enough here, and maybe we should go somewhere else. And so these sort of discussions were going for some time, but in our family. But when that happened, it was okay, man. What are we waiting for? So
And what was your family's, reaction to this whole thing? Like, were they scared? Were they supportive? What were they saying to do
they were
after
kind
this?
of both. And for some time, people thought, this was a mistake, and it will get sort of cleared up, and
Hmm.
so on. And then it became clear that it was not a mistake. I mean, they were pursuing me for their own reasons, and even though the actual reasons, had very little to do with what was publicly presented, they still had their reasons, and so it wasn't clearing up anytime soon. So the family was always supportive. Obviously they
Hmm.
also had a shock, and they had this thought, okay, um, it's a mistake and it will clear up. But then they said, okay, man, if that's what it is, then that's what it is.
Okay, and I think this happened around the year 2013, 2014. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so, what were you doing after this? You sold off your business. You were in a bit of a controversy with the Russian state. So, yeah, what was going on?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question.
What did you do after this? Like in terms of work, did you start another venture, or like what were you thinking?
Look, I tried to. I mean, the first thing that happened is I went into depression and it
Mhm.
lasted for
Yeah.
years. And I didn't want to admit it to myself, and so
Okay.
I tried to do some things in that state, and none of this worked out. Yeah, I was just not fit mentally to do anything really. And for the longest time, I was sort of in denial about this. But that's what happened. So, I was depressed, and at the same time, I was kind of pretending that I was not. And like I said, it took years for it to kind of to work through.
You mentioned that you were depressed. I would love if you could, go more in depth, into this. What was it like? Did you feel like you lost confidence in yourself, or
I
anything
mean, look,
else?
actually, so you could say it was your classic depression. So you could
Hmm.
look up, the signs of depression and or symptoms of depression, and this is exactly what it was. Um, so you can add denial to this.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it was not fun. It was really not fun.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
worst part is it was also very much not fun for people around me.
Uh,
So it was only when I kind of swam out of that period, only then I realized that I should have sought help
mhm.
and should have gotten treatment. And because otherwise, what happened is I basically subjected my entire family and people who were around me to kind of the horrors of my own depression, and they really didn't deserve any of that. So. That was not the most pleasant of the realizations, but that's what happened.
And this was for how many years? From 2014 to,
Yeah, maybe for about 5 years.
oh, and all this time you were in Russia itself or somewhere else?
No, no, I left for the U.S. in 2014.
Okay.
Basically, right after Putin decided to annex Crimea, so that was the end of it for me.
What you just heard is something most founders would never admit in public. 5 years of depression, denial, and the slow realization that your closest ones bore the cost of your unacknowledged pain. Let's pause here for a moment. This is exactly the territory the founder stack is looking to explore. In startup culture, we talk about resilience a lot, but what really happens behind it? That is something which we never explore. Alexei did not make a comeback. He went down under. And when he came back, he had a different relationship with honesty, particularly honesty with himself. For now, let's get back to our conversation. Alexei has just left Russia and moved to the US. He is now about to discover that building a business in the US is a different ballgame. Okay, okay. So, how was your experience with, US businesses as compared to the, Russian and European ones that you worked with in the few years that you have been here now?
Well, it's pretty different, actually, but it's I've been here for more than 10 years now that it's sort of a little
Yeah.
hard even to pinpoint what is different. I mean, one of the things maybe that can be kind of formulated in words is in an emergent market like Russia, if you do something, anything really, and you're somewhere close to what market wants, then you're okay, right? You're already making money. The size of the market may be small, so you may be making very little money, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, you're already kind of in business. In the US, in order to start making any money to speak of, you would need to be very precise, kind of precisely kind of on point with your value proposition. It should be exactly what the market wants and the exact form, and all the little sort of details should be all correct. If you're off by a millimeter, you're out of money. Nobody wants you. So you have to be exactly on point. But at the same time, if you are exactly on point, then the success that you get is can be staggering. So these would be probably the two biggest sort of differentiators, I would say, that I can kind of name, and that there are many more, but a lot of them are kind of either subtle or kind of too philosophical, I guess. But these are kind of the things that I can tell.
Great, great. So Alexei, up till now, we have been, covering your history and now I would like to get into a section that I called as the default state. So the default state is basically like a state which, systems and humans both fall into when nothing else works. So I'm going to give you like 5 bullet questions, and I would just like to like you to give an immediate answer without thinking about it much. Is that fine?
Okay.
Yeah. So question one is think back that you are in a hospital and there are two patients coming in. One of them is a billionaire who can, possibly fund your hospital for the next few years.
And
The
I'm a
other
doctor,
patient,
not a patient, right?
no, no, no. There are two patients, both of them have injuries.
Then
And
who am
one,
I? Who am I?
you are the doctor.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one billionaire has come in with some sort of an injury who needs a bed. And the second patient is a child who has slightly higher chance of survival than the billionaire. Which one would you treat, billionaire or the child?
Probably the child. The fact that the other is a billionaire is really not a factor. I wouldn't even think about that. And also, to be honest, I mean, in a realistic triage situation, this isn't what you find out. I mean, unless you know this guy personally.
Mhm.
But then, if you know this guy personally, that might become a factor. Not because he's a billionaire, but because he's your friend,
Mhm.
or maybe your
Okay,
enemy. I don't know.
okay, okay. Next up is say you are doing some sort of projections for your business and you are at a very critical juncture and your model is saying that there is a 1% chance of critical failure. but somehow your gut feeling is saying that this is a very 50-50 kind of a situation. So which one would you choose to go with? Stick with the model or go with the man, the gut feeling?
No, that's a tough one. I would probably say gut feeling, but not because that gut feeling sort of trumps everything, but because
Mhm.
I build the model, right? And models are always simplifications of reality. So the model cannot possibly incorporate things that are kind of that we call gut feeling. Um, so yeah, it would probably say, all right. I mean, the model says this, but I never really rely on the model for that. I
Mhm.
would say, okay, the model is showing this scenario. It says, probably very little reliable things about the probability of a scenario.
Okay. Next question is you have to fire somebody from your team. You have two options. One is the rock star of your team who brings real great numbers, does great sales, but he has a very toxic nature. He's not a good team player. The other one is someone who is a great culture fit into your team, but has no sales, has zero numbers, has zero results. Who do you fire?
Toxic first, loser second, but basically both will go.
Oh, okay, both will go. So,
So
so you don't.
so you see, the toxic one really, is damaging to the team and immediately, right? So the moment I identify this person, he has to go. Uh, the guy who you said doesn't have numbers and so on, but he is probably through his personality an important sort of team cement, if you will, right?
Mhm.
So I will keep him and try to coach him and, see if the results can be improved. But if not, then, after a certain period of time, he'll have to go as well.
Okay, okay. Next one is say today somebody, some investor comes in and offers to buy out your company for $50 million and says that I will not use your technology for the application that you are looking at, aviation fuel. I'll use it for something else, maybe something like plastic. And the other option is you just continue, working on your thing, on your mission. What would you choose?
Yeah, I would sell him a license for plastics. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, but, get the 15 million.
Oh, okay. But maybe if it is not plastic, then maybe something is trying it for completely different, which you didn't want to pursue.
No, come on, like you have to be realistic here. So
Yeah.
if he wants to pursue a different line of business, I'm selling him a license for that line of business.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not,
Fair enough.
and then I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and he will
Yeah.
do what he does.
Okay. Uh, Last one. Uh, Say you could go back in time to your younger self and you could provide one of two things, unlimited wisdom or unlimited money. Which one would you choose?
No, wisdom is a better one, I think. Uh, it's just more fun. I mean, life isn't really too much about money. It's like we all have a limited amount of time in this
Yeah.
sort of state, and whether you believe in reincarnation or something else, but in this particular state, we have a limited amount of time. If you don't have the wisdom, uh, how's money going to bring you happiness? And if you do have the wisdom, first of all, you can get the money if that's important to you. And second, chances are it may not even be important to your happiness. And so we're all out here basically to be happy, and everybody has a different way to be happy. And some people want to do things, and some other people want to think about things, and some other people want to help others do things different ways. But it all requires some degree of wisdom. So.
Great, great. Now let's move back to your current venture. Would you like to tell us a bit about it, how you came about it, and how you started it?
Man, it was a chain of coincidences again. And it's a really long chain. I don't know how far back you want me to go because it started in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, it- my first out of McKinsey thing was like I told you, a rail car leasing venture, right?
Yeah.
Which was successful and all that, and then we parted ways with the shareholders and so on. And then I thought, as we were already doing this turnaround story, and it was going pretty well, and sort of it was generating quite a bit of money. And we thought, okay, why don't we do something else? And why don't we also look back at the rail cars and maybe, we can say, some particular way of working with rail cars different from what I did before and so on. And we started looking at tank cars. And at one point we thought, okay, now we need to understand what are these tank cars carrying? And turned out in Russia, many of them were carrying liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. I thought, okay, where does it come from? And turned out it came from, to a large degree again, from associated petroleum gas, which is the gas that comes out of the ground when you drill for oil, but also gas comes out, right? So some part of that gas becomes LPG. And then we looked more and said, okay, but there are other things coming out, right? Not just LPG.
Yeah.
And we found that, a lot of that gas is being burned because there isn't an economic way to transport it. And we thought, okay, maybe this is the business we're going to get at. Not the rail cars, but taking care of the associated petroleum gas that have been flared. And initially, it was not a technological play. We just said, we're going to use the technologies that the humanity has used for decades, if not, 100 years, and just convert that flared gas into actual products. And, we had some ideas how we're going to solve the transportation problem, and that was the idea. And it sounded really great, but it didn't work at all. Um, because the oil companies who owned these things, they saw it more as a risk than an opportunity, and we didn't realize this for quite a bit.
This was in
Uh,
which year?
it was 2006 through
Mhm. Okay, when you had just started working with your
11. It
friends. Yeah.
actually took us about 5 years to work through that,
Mm-hmm.
to finally accept the failure. I think it
Mm-hmm.
took us about 5 years. And we traveled Russia and we traveled Kazakhstan and we went to all oil companies and so on and so forth. And then, it didn't work. And we were just basically, in the end, we were too early.
Mm-hmm.
Had we started in 2000, whatever, 11, it would have been a successful company. But we were already exhausted after 5 years of trying and sort of, yeah, nothing was happening. And then in 2011, as we were shutting down that company, a bunch of scientists came to us and said, hey, we have this great technology to actually take care of the associated petroleum gas to convert it into oil. It was a gas to liquids technology. But we really can't talk to any of these oil companies. They wouldn't talk to us. And we see that you guys are actually friends with all the CEOs and all. So, why don't you take a stake in our company in exchange for helping commercialize it? And we said, okay. And then, if nothing else, we can try that. And, fast forward 2 years, we sold that company, at an amazing multiple to a strategic buyer. Because we had all these connections to the oil companies and the scientists actually had an interesting technology. And when we did that, another group of scientists came to us and said, hey, we have another technology. And so that's the one that we've been carrying for, you know, a decade now and sort of developing it and so on and so forth. And the scientists actually did not want to win a stake in the business. They said, you just pay a salary. We don't understand your equity, schmequity, just give us the salary. And so by now, the original scientists are basically retired. The youngest of them is, I think, 67 years old or something. So that's that. And this is how it all started. And In the sort of in the previous incarnation of this technology, we worked with tiny companies in Russia who wanted to become
Mhm.
oil refiners but didn't have the money or skill or anything really. And so we kind of twisted our technology to work with really very cheap, very strange feedstocks, and make them into high octane gasoline. So that was the business. And we had 4 little plants that our customers started using our technology. And obviously, I haven't been in touch with them for a number of years now, but as far as I'm aware, they worked at least for some of those years, or maybe are still working. And then, a big fish, a company called Gazprom Neft, noticed us and started working with us, and they spent maybe 3 or 4 years in diligence, technical diligence, and they got us to build a pilot plant and to operate the pilot plant in a particular way that they wanted it to run. And then they said, okay, we're going to build a big plant. We're going to build a 500,000 ton a year plant on our refinery
So
using technology.
this plant was in US or was it in
No, it was
Russia?
in Russia. It was still in Russia. It was 2019.
Okay.
So everything was going well, and they announced it publicly in 2019, which is why I'm telling
Mhm.
you now. And they intended to launch the plant in 2023. So as we all know, a year before that, a war started, and so everything changed. So in 22, when the war started, we thought, okay, things are not going too well. Let's look at what else we can do, and with some nudges from our friends from other oil companies, we discovered this world of renewables, which we were completely oblivious to before. And it turned out actually our technology is ideal for renewables because it can work with unusual feedstocks, and pretty much all the feedstocks in renewables are unusual as compared to crude oil. Then our technology works really well at small scale as well as large scale. And pretty much everything you have in the renewables is small scale, not because it's sort of just new and only starting, but because the renewable feedstocks aren't concentrated and they're very hard to transport, unlike crude oil. So there are no pipelines for even ethanol, and there are no pipelines for municipal waste. There are no pipelines for used cooking oil, and so on. So you have to work with small quantities of things that are available at a particular spot. And finally, our technology has always been really very energy efficient, and that translates into very little carbon intensity. So these 3 things, the unusual feeds, the small scale and large scale, and the low carbon intensity really became our sort of differentiating features. So that's how we got to where we are now.
How hard was it, after the war started, for you to leave everything? Because I think there you had also set up a plant which was going to be operational in a year or so, leaving everything back and again kind of, starting in the US from a much lower level. Maybe not from zero, but still from a much earlier level, right? How was it?
No, it was very painful. But when you look back and say, okay, man, but we were not bombed, right? It was the
Mhm,
Ukrainians who got bombed. We didn't lose our lives and our limbs and our
mhm,
loved ones, right? Okay, we lost some money and we lost some opportunities, but
mhm.
compared to that, I mean, what are we talking about? So,
So were you living in Russia when that happened, or were you operating from the
no,
US
no, I
itself?
left in 2014. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So you were traveling there only for work in between. Is that it, or you
It
never went
was,
there?
I was operating remotely. I had a
Oh,
partner
okay. Mm-hmm.
who happened to be Ukrainian, but he had to leave shortly afterwards. Yeah.
Yes. Who are your co-founders right now? Like, are these the same people you started the business with, or you met them in the US?
It's a combination. I mean, the team
Hmm.
in its entirety. I mean, Dennis, my co-founder, and I, we've been at it since 2006. So the whole
Okay,
story that
yeah.
I told you. And then in 2014, Steven joined us.
Okay.
So he joined even sort of even as most of the operations were in Russia, and sort of was with us and still is with us until this time.
Okay. And at what stage are you guys in your company? Have you already started commercially selling your product, or are you still in development, or what is it?
Man, development never stops. You'll stop
Yeah, yeah,
development when
yeah,
you're dead, right?
yeah.
Client-wise, we just got a client commit to a project with us, a US-based client.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're busy with right now. And there are a few more in the pipeline. And there is another one in Asia that is probably at the final stages of evaluating the technology. So things are moving ahead.
Great, great. And I think you have raised a round from Techstars, right? Or Alchemist Accelerator,
Yeah, we
correct?
we, we went to the Alchemist. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so are you planning now for some more rounds, or not really looking for fundraisers?
We still need to do our Series A.
Okay.
So
So you
that
have
one, I
already
think.
started reaching out or no?
Yes, we have. The round doesn't closed yet, but yeah, we're
Hmm.
talking to people.
In terms of fundraising, what do you think is the most important in the US? Is it networking first and then the product, or do you think it's the product first and then, your connects and connections?
Um, Here, pretty much everything, including the VCs, um, have kind of their own ways of working. And understanding these ways is probably the most important thing. Like, at every stage there is the correct combination of risk and expected return. And
Hmm.
like for example, if you really sort of go down on your risk, but people are not seeing the returns that sort of and oh maybe like it's not like they don't see any returns, but if they don't see the returns they expect at the stage, which can be like 10x or 100x or something, then you're nowhere, right? Even though your risk is low and nobody doubts that you will make some amount of money, but they say, okay, at this stage, we need, that much. We need 100x, or show us 100x. If you cannot show 100x, you're out. Right. At some other stage, they say, okay, but we need 10x. If you're
Hmm.
not 10x, you're out. Obviously, risk matters too. So, okay, maybe
Yeah.
you're showing 100x, but your risk profile isn't there. So it's understanding these sort of rules of the game, and they're not necessarily kind of hidden. It's just that before you start sort of the fundraising journey, you really don't understand how important these are, and how counterproductive it is to deviate from the set rules even a little bit. And that explains why such a small percentage of companies actually raise money at even the seed stage or pre-seed stage, and also subsequently, because they don't fit a specific sort of box, and you really have to fit a specific box.
Great, great. Alexei, you have been, doing a lot of different roles throughout your life. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, what is the one, say, role or the one thing that you think really helps you out today as a founder? Is it your time in medicine? Is it in pharma? Is it, your MBA, or is it any of your other businesses that kind of, helps you most in, your mindset as a founder? Obviously, all of them have played some role, but Which is the biggest one you feel?
I don't think that any particular professional role
Mm-hmm.
is key. The key to me, and can be a little different for everybody else. The key to me is to be very honest with myself, and that is sometimes extremely hard, because you have to own up kind of all your shortfalls and all of the mistakes that you made and all of the things where you're not great, right? But before you do this, before you kind of face it all, you really cannot go forward in no matter which profession, right? It's sort of it catches up everywhere. It catches up with you everywhere if you're not honest with yourself. And so that is it has not been easy. It's never easy, that one. It's a little, maybe it's a little easier with time. When the first time was really brutal. The next time is slightly less brutal, but it's still very unpleasant. And the ability then to do something about it, right? Because it's not good if you just said, "Oh, like I suck," and everything goes to hell, and then that's it. It's not helpful, right? What is helpful is, okay, I mean, I suck. Now what do we do about it? So that's the one.
Okay, Alexei, what do you think are you going to do if this venture doesn't succeed? Is this like follow this to the end, or like you have anything else up your sleeve?
Look, something else. I don't know. It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
tell. Right now I'm focused on this one.
Mm-hmm.
But time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, you have spent a lot of time on this one, right? Although
Mm.
not full time, right, from 2004, but yeah, looks like you have been, coming step by step into this, and now it has reached a very good stage, I would say.
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Alexei. It was pleasure doing this with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Take care.
Alexei ended his conversation with something that I keep going back to. The key, he said, is being honest with yourself, and not as a motivational line, but something to practice. And in his words, it is something which is extremely hard to do and never easy. For a man who was not honest with himself in his 5 years of depression and he failed to recognize it, this landed quite differently than it would from somebody else. What struck me most about this conversation with him was his unusual journey. He started from a Soviet medical school, a blood bank, then INSEAD MBA, a turnaround empire, then a fall from disgrace, depression, and now a renewables technology company which is looking to raise Series A for, and he already has a committed customer. No clean narrative arc, just a guy who kept on going and slowly got better at knowing himself. If this journey resonated with you, you need to check out my newsletter, Founder's Psyche, where I'll be writing about the psychological annotations about this conversation. Link is in the description. And if you know a founder whose inner journey deserves this kind of conversation, please send them my way. Link is in the description. The Founder Stack is just getting started. I am Ashish. See you next time.